Hello, and welcome to the first ever video for the Unbox. This video is about a topic that I've been requested to cover a few times, which is how do I find Airbnbs? I think the question there is less like where do I go to find it? It's pretty obvious that all the listings are on Airbnb's website, which is definitely one advantage over hotels where you kind of have to know about these obscure corners of the internet to find the good ones. There's so much inventory on Airbnb.com. How do you swiftly filter through all those things? And for people who have not stayed at too many Airbnbs or have not been in charge of actually being the person to pick one, how do they actually know like what's a high quality one, what's good? So in order to answer that question, I am going to actually go through and pick a real Airbnb for an upcoming trip live. Before we get started, I think it's really important to talk about my criteria when it comes to staying at Airbnb. So my criteria is that the quality of that particular Airbnb has to be the same as a hotel, but at a lower cost than the hotel. I would much rather stay at a hotel if given the choice. So it just has to be a better value, which means that my standards are pretty high. I know some people prefer staying at Airbnb for like sense of community, or they're just willing to sacrifice certain amenities for a lower cost. And to be totally honest, like that's not me. Those are not my reasons. This video is for someone who has similar reasons. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna do this for real for an upcoming trip that I have coming up. That trip is to Taipei. So let's get started. So before I even actually go to Airbnb's website, I usually have an idea of what neighborhood I want to stay in the city that I'm visiting. I usually figure that out just through talking through friends. If no friends have ever been there, then I usually go to Wiki Travel, which does really good like neighborhood by neighborhood detailed breakdowns for cities all around the world. And if all else fails, just a simple Google search. So for this trip to Taipei, I'm looking specifically in this area over here between the MRT Dalian stop and the Dongmen stop. Last time we went to Taipei, we stayed in Dongmen, pretty chill neighborhood, great for street food. But Dalian is sort of like the design and arts district, so this time I wanted to consider staying there as well. You can see there's still 17 pages of inventory to go through. Airbnb actually limits you to no more than 17 pages, even if there are more than that amount. So normally I would set a date. This year, because I'm not working full time, my dates are pretty flexible, and that's actually one of the, I guess, life hacks you could say as to how I'm able to stay at really nice places. It's because I literally have the flexibility to plan my trip around that place and its availability. So for this trip, I'm actually not going to set the date. If you're working full time, you probably aren't as flexible, and you probably have like a certain window you need to book in, and you definitely should set the date so you're not wasting time looking at anything that's unavailable. So for guests, I'm going to set it to 3 because I'm traveling with my boyfriend and my mom. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm looking at Airbnb as opposed to a hotel. A lot of the hotels I would stay at in Taipei, which are like really small boutique hotels, they're really intended for like a couple or 2 people traveling together. So for us all to stay, we'd have to book 2 hotel rooms, and that's just going to add a lot of cost on. So Airbnb is, I think generally when you're traveling with 3 people, Airbnb is like usually always more cost effective. 90% of the time, I will book the entire place to myself, which goes back to my previously stated criteria of wanting to be as close to the hotel experience as possible. So for price, it always depends on the place that you're going. If I were looking in New York, for example, and it was just 2 of us, I'd probably be looking at 200 or less. So it'd be like 100 per person per night. Taipei is a lot cheaper. So I'm actually going to still set my max at 200. That's for 3 people, and I think that's actually still pretty generous. I very rarely use either Instant Book or the trip type filter. Instant Book, I think it's more useful if you're planning last minute, and I pretty much never plan last minute, which is another way that I am able to stay at really nice places. You know, even without Instant Book, most hosts get back to you within 24 hours, at least the ones that have they're highly reviewed. The one thing I will sometimes do is I'll add the Superhost filter in for cities that have a ton of inventory. Like what I actually want is a filter that where you can set the minimum amount of reviews that you would consider. I don't like to stay anywhere without like a minimum of like 15-ish reviews, because that's enough to make me feel like, okay, this is legit. If someone had 70 positive reviews, I don't care if they're a super host or not. Like I don't even really know what that fully means. But as you can see in this situation, it actually reduced a lot of the inventory down. I think 44 is actually too little for me to feel like I'm truly seeing everything and I'm not missing out on something. So I'm gonna actually uncheck that. And it kind of like triples the amount. And it sounds like a lot, 120 listings, but it actually isn't, and it goes really fast with my process. Now that I have those filters set, and you can see we basically like almost half the amount of pages by setting those, I just go through really quickly, and the first round is just, if the first photo appeals to me, then I will like click and open it in a new tab. It's kind of like a dating profile. Like you really want your profile photo to have a really good first impression, to show your best self. Maybe it sounds kind of harsh, but if the hosts don't recognize that their first photo should be awesome, then to me that says something about like their attention to detail and maybe how good they are at being a host. I don't know, maybe that's projecting too much. I'm gonna fast forward through this. You guys don't have to watch me look at every single photo. Yeah. One of the things that appeals to me the most when I'm looking at that first cover photo is, one, the amount of natural light that I can see in the photo, because this is super important to me. Like anything that looks dark or dank or like there's no windows in the photo, I'm usually not going to click on it. And the other thing is, I like it when it actually shows like a lot of the space. It's not like a close-up on something. Like I think either showing the full living room or the full bedroom are like probably the best. This one's like a little bit close. Can't really see like the full kitchen, but what you can see looks nice, so I'm still gonna click on it and pray that it's not clickbait. Okay, so as you can see, I just went from like 130 to however many tabs I have open, which is less than 130. So now, in the second step, what I usually do is I go through each listing and I'll click through all the photos until I see a photo that basically disturbs me in some way. I wish it sounded more logical than that, or like more step by step, but it's very intuitive. Let me just start clicking through this. Like I know what I like and I know what I don't like, and I'm a person where the space I'm in has a huge effect on my mood, how comfortable I am. Like I mentioned natural light, like if I click through and I see a photo where it's like, oh, this place actually looks really dark and not in an intentional way where it's like cozy and warm, then I'm just like, okay, I'm done looking and I don't need to waste my time any further on this listing. So if I can make it through like all the photos and not be turned off, it's like a good sign. This one's funny because we actually stayed in this the last time we were in Taipei, and it's actually really, really nice, and I'd highly recommend it. If anyone wants the info, just email me. The reason I'm probably not going to consider it this time is because it's much better for 3 friends traveling than for my mom. I think at my mom's age, she has earned the right not to sleep on like a futon, so I'm going to text that. And this like tropical aesthetic, it's really cute. Normally I like that, but I think here it looks a little too college dorm-like. This one, I'm not sure why I clicked on this one. This looks way too dark. We're shy. Usually not a good sign. Usually means the space is really tiny. Ooh, but this one, I just noticed that this actually has no reviews yet, so I feel like this one is kind of like that other tropical one we saw, but like tropical was like a girl in college. This one's like a girl like out of college at her first job. A lot of places I've traveled, they always describe their lofts as like Brooklyn style loft, and it's just amusing to me because I used to live in Brooklyn, and usually I'm like, that's literally the last thing I want. I want it to look like Taipei. Here's the one we saw earlier where all we could see was this kitchen. These bedspreads just like need to go. But this bathtub is like that looks dope, and the view from the bathtub. Man, I really hate wall decals. This one's kind of weird though because it also kind of looks like the waiting room at a pediatrician's office. Okay, so now after 2 rounds, I'm down to like 11. And this is when I will start to actually take into consideration the actual price. And since I didn't set dates before, I actually need to do it now in order to actually get the accurate pricing. I wish that they would show me the total price divided by the amount of people that I've specified will be staying here. I usually have to like pull this up myself and do it, and then like this is the actual number that I care about, not this. Especially when I'm traveling with a group, because if I send them options to get input, most people just want to know how much am I gonna pay individually. I'm gonna fast forward through this. This one's not even available. Take that out. One thing I like about this view in particular on Airbnb is that you can see when it's available or not. So even if it's not available, like I said before, for the full time you're staying there, if it's available for like enough nights, you might still consider it. The other thing I like is that you can kind of get a sense of how popular a certain listing is just by seeing, like, as you go through the months, like how often it's booked or not. Right, I have all the dates set and I can see the prices. This one, which was really, really beautiful, it's a bit expensive, I think. I already know from like setting the dates on the other listings that there are things that are way cheaper than 960. So like, I mean, this was like the one right next to it, and it's like a lot less. So I think this is a little expensive for how it looks. It's pretty basic. Usually at this stage, I will be even try to see like if I can see in the photos what the view is like. Like this one looks pretty good. Like it's obviously high up floor. There's not like a building right next to the window. So at this stage, I'm really looking at like details like that. This one I do like that there's like, you can tell that it gets a lot of light just by the way that the light is hitting those sheer curtains. Like I'm a sucker for weird, interesting tiles. So this balcony is pretty cool to me. And yeah, like it's not right up against the building next door. The view's not as good as there's a rooftop. Okay, well that changes things. This bathroom looks totally nuts, but I'm like really into it, to be honest. I actually like stuff like this more than like, I think the first one had like a very clean, very modern, like it definitely looks cleaner, like a newer, but I feel like this just has so much personality and it kind of works. And this one, which is definitely a lot cheaper. It has a short loft and it has the bed in the living room, which is not ideal. Oh, so at this stage, I'll also be looking at how many, so this one has 133 reviews, almost 5 stars. Like I think anything 4 stars and above is pretty good. This one, I think 45 is definitely, like that's a solid number and it's all 5 stars on average, which is pretty good. And the price is not that much more when you divide it by 3. Okay, so this one is considerably more than the other two. I actually, even without considering the price or the reviews, I kind of like that second one a lot more. So another thing that I would do, for me personally, I don't feel like I need to do this in Taipei, which is not to say that other people shouldn't, but if this was a listing in America or in Europe, I would probably be paying a lot of attention to like the diversity of the reviewers. So I'm gonna cut that one out. I really like this super weird Airbnb. I just like places that are like really odd, and I don't know. I don't know why I feel like I have to justify my decision. I think this is a pretty awesome place. It kind of checks all the boxes. Like the price is really good. It is under $100 per night. It has a roof like that you can access, which is pretty awesome. Reading it now, I'm like, it has 2 bathrooms, which is also really nice. Oh, and then the last thing I'll do, which I actually should have checked on the other 2, but is also, I will double check just how close it is exactly to public transit, and this one definitely looks like within walking distance. Um, Sometimes I'll also look for that information in the reviews. It's not usually an issue in an urban area like Taipei, but like when I was looking for places to stay on like Koh Samui, which is an island in Thailand, like it was very useful because like a lot of the reviews would say how long it took them to walk to the beach, which is like why you go there. So yeah, I think this is the one, and I'm still gonna do I'm gonna double check the hotel situation, just make sure that there is nothing that works for us for a party of three. But if not, then you guys will probably see me staying at this place later this year. So there you have it. Okay, so I mentioned beforehand that there are some exceptions to this process, or exceptions or edge cases, I should say, where the criteria doesn't always apply. One of those is when I'm traveling alone, especially when I'm traveling alone in high-cost areas like Scandinavia. So a few years back, I did a solo trip to Norway, and Norway is notoriously expensive, especially if you can't split the cost with someone else. Like, it would be really expensive to stay in a hotel or to get an entire Airbnb to myself. So I did look into staying into shared rooms there. I stayed in a shared room in Oslo, I should say a private room in a shared building, not sharing the room with someone else. I have my limits. So I looked into the private room thing in both Oslo and Bergen. I actually had a really, really great experience in both places, and I saved a lot of money by opting to do that instead of getting a whole place to myself. So this was the Airbnb that I stayed at in Oslo, which was super, super nice, in a great location. And I think when I'm traveling alone, I probably look even more at the reviews. Just things like how long will it take to walk to the subway if I'm by myself. And I also did this in Bergen, which is another city in Norway. I stayed at this place. It's very nice. And yeah, the host was a guy, and I was traveling alone as a woman, so I definitely read a lot of the reviews. The other exception is when there's just really low inventory in a given area. So this is an Airbnb I've booked for an upcoming trip to Hokkaido. We're actually doing a road trip through Hokkaido, and that means that we need to stop and stay in places that are pretty remote, out in nature. And sometimes you'll, when you search, there's less than 10 listings. So when your choices are that slim, I usually care a little bit less about the number of reviews. I'll go below that 15 minimum. I probably still wouldn't stay somewhere with 0 reviews. I think at that point I would rather just suck it up and pay for a hotel. And I'm lucky that I can do that. But if a place had 4 reviews and it's clear that this is just not a highly trafficked place, I would still consider staying there. I think this place was a crazy exception because it is in the middle of nowhere, but somehow it has 115 5-star reviews, which is kind of nuts. It really is in an area where there were 7 other choices, so this one was just very obvious. But I hope that regardless, this process helps some people, or at least gives you a sense of the things that are important to me as someone that has stayed in Airbnbs a lot, has traveled a lot. Really saves you a little bit of time. Let me know if I should make more videos for the unbox. Bye!